Well, in these 8 years and a half, more than 100 months, 6,600,000 were displaced outside of the country, which is almost 30% of the population, of the whole population, and maybe 600,000 were killed. It's one of the biggest tragedy. It is the biggest tragedy in this century and one of the biggest in our region. And the UN talked about the biggest human crisis since the end of the Second World War. So it is a big thing, and I find it. I find my job as trying to tell the world about what is happening and to actually to understand the situation of the world that such a thing could happen in it. Because what's happening in Syria is happening in the world, the only world we have. We have only one world, and Syria is part of the world. And one of the points that I always focus on is that what's happening here or there is related, is interrelated, interlinked with the world at large. So we cannot talk now about France, even about US, about China, about Russia, about Syria, about any African country, about Rwanda, in isolation of the world at large. Syria is part of the world, this is obvious, but the world is part of Syria, this is not very obvious. And it is part of Syria, the meaning that what's happening in Syria is a global thing. It is reflects the structure of the world. So I hope in my presentation, I talked about terror, mass extermination, and the genocratic turn, which means the rule of the cultural majority, which is undermining democracy everywhere in the world, or preventing it. And this, I hope in this presentation that it will help people to, it offers people some tools to analyze and to understand the situation of the world today. Well, one of our big problems today is that we work in isolation from each other. Sort of intensive fragmentation of the world and intensive fragmentation of the movements of protest and of change and progressive-minded people. So I hope through spaces like this and through activities and initiatives that we move forward in building new alliances, a new wave or a new generation of solidarity. I think now time for moving beyond the form of solidarity that we have known since the end of the Cold War, which is enjoyed and in a way neoliberalized forms of solidarity, to more militant solidarity, solidarity oriented towards changing the world. It is, well, I tend to think of it the way we think of the first internationalism, the second internationalism, and the third internationalism. So I think we have already seen the first solidarity movement in 1950s, 60s, 70s between the Eastern Bloc and the Third World or the newly independent countries, and then this new liberal enjoys and form of solidarity that we've seen in the last 30 years almost. I think we need a third solidarity movement, more revolutionary and more militant and more aiming to changing the world, that you cannot isolate the problems of any country from the global structure.